Hi everybody, Matt the Matt here, hope you're doing well. So, on June 30th was the 20th anniversary of War of the Worlds. This was Steven Spielberg film starring Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, Tim Robbins, and Miranda Otto. I remember seeing this movie in 2005. My family was on our typical summer vacation down in Florida. Every year we would go down to Florida for the summer. This was before 30A got popular. We were going down to 30A back in the early 90s, all through the 90s and the 2000s. And the 2010s, no, not the 2010s. I stopped going in the 2010s. But anyway, a little backstory there. So one night, we were like, okay, let's go see that. I wanted to see the Steven Spielberg movie, War of the Worlds. Although this was the second time Tom Cruise worked with Steven Spielberg. The first was Minority Report, which is still one of my top 3 favorite Spielberg movies and one of my favorite Tom Cruise performances. So that was another reason why I wanted to see it. And I still remember going to that theater, sitting down with my family, and the trailers started. And I know you guys are like, trailers? You talking about the trailers? Let me finish. And I'm watching the trailers, And this was back in the day where if you wanted to see a movie, or an upcoming movie, a trailer for it, you had to go see the movie, whatever movie that it was playing in front of, you would have to go to the theater. Because they didn't put it online. No online. No YouTube. There was no YouTube yet. There was QuickTime, but even then they didn't put out the trailer right away. Sometimes it would be weeks or months later. So, and I didn't even realize this movie was playing in front of War of the Worlds. But I was sitting there, and this trailer comes up, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, what is this movie? Because in the back of my mind, I'm like, I should know what this movie is. I'm the movie guy. I look up movie stuff every day, even back then, on comingsoon.net. And I'm like, what is this movie? And then Naomi Watts shows up on screen. Then it's Jack Black. Then it's Adrian Brody. And I'm like, huh? And then they go to an island. And that's when I went, ugh. My dad was sitting next to me. I go, Dad. He's like, what is it? I go, Kong. And sure enough, it's the first trailer for King Kong, the Peter Jackson King Kong. And of course we get to that ending of that trailer where we see the T-Rex and Kong and the Naomi Watts is right in the middle. And I'm just like, ugh. And then it said, of course, December. But I still remember seeing that first trailer for King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong, after he just came off of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait. But that's for, we'll be talking about King Kong in December, for his 20th anniversary. But we are talking about War of the Worlds, and I have always been a fan of this movie. This is a remake of the original War of the Worlds. I want to say the 50s, maybe the 40s or 50s, when the original came out. This is a great way to remake a movie for at the time, our world at the time, 2005, post 9/11, and you definitely get a lot of 9/11 feel for this movie, the atmosphere, the tone, the first invasion of the alien, when we first see the alien ship rising out of the ground, and then he starts zapping people, and they just turn to dust. And you see Tom Cruise running through the streets, getting everyone's, dust, body parts, all over him. He looked like someone who just went through 9/11. All the soot in the air, all the debris. It was just kind of really putting you into that frame. But also Tom Cruise is great in this role. He's not a likable character. And that's what made it so great, is he's not the hero. You know, he's a deadbeat dad. His place is a mess. He doesn't even remember that his daughter is allergic to peanut butter. I still remember that line. I'm allergic. Since when? Birth. I mean, and there's not that much humor in this movie, but that was one of the good moments. But he's not, he's not a good father, and obviously since he's divorced, he obviously wasn't a great husband either. So it really is a great character for Tom Cruise to play. And he does a great job, and obviously throughout the movie, we see him. Even in the car, he's telling his daughter, played by Dakota Fanning, to shut up. He's yelling at her. Which, nowadays, you wouldn't see that in a movie. You can't say that to a child. It's called parenting 101. Photography, this movie has a lot of great, eerie shots. I love the shots where the alien ship is like in the background, and then the foreground is just land, or whether it's people or landscape. It just looks, you get that sense of dread, but also like, wow, look at that shot. They're like the one with the plane, all the debris from the plane, or the one where they're in this like green field where it's all covered in blood, and the blood is like in roots, like plant roots. Really stunning look to it. The music, the score, very haunting score throughout the movie. I love it. The atmosphere, like I said, very much a post 9/11 feel. Later on in the movie, we have a wall or a board with missing people, reminiscent of 9/11 also, with a lot of people missing. You get that sense of fear and invasion. Even in the movie when they're in the car, Rami, the teenager, says, "Is it terrorist?" And Ray Ferrier, "No, Rami, it's not terrorist." And that's something people would say back then, because once again, 9/11. And like I said, the imagery in this movie is so haunting. This can be looked at as a horror movie. It's a sci-fi film, but it's a horror film. Whether it's the scene where Dakota Fanning is going to the bathroom, and she ends up walking away a little bit. She comes up to a river, and the next thing you know, you see one body start floating down the river, and then all of a sudden a bunch of bodies floating down the river. Haunting. Imagine being a little kid and seeing tons of dead bodies floating down a river. I also love the shot where, after the whole boat sequence, and they're walking off into the distance, into the forest type of thing, and clothes, people's clothes, men, women, children, clothes are falling from the sky. It's dark and eerie looking, and you just just clothes falling down. Because of all the people that got zapped and abducted. evaporated, if you will. I mean, that's haunting. That's scary. That eerie sense of dread. Like, there's some horror elements with, I was in Aliens showing people the whole standoff with Tim Robbins and Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise's character kills somebody. Or the scene in the mob scene where the whole bunch they're driving that car and the car stops working. People try to get in the car and they're, shattering the glass, pulling the teenage son out, start beating him, raining him out, points his gun everywhere. And then some guy comes up and points the gun at him. And it's just, like, in real life that would happen. I mean, we had COVID. And people were going nuts over toilet paper in Walmart. Imagine if we had an alien invasion. I mean, one thing you get those mob sequences where, people are going to do whatever they can to survive. We're gonna jump this car and we don't care if your daughter's still in the car. We're taking the car. If your daughter wants to stay in the car, that's on her. We don't care. I mean, those are some really serious, scary scenes. And they're realistic. And like in the set production, the plane sequence, all real practical set, no CGI. It looks great. I wish movies would go back to having real sets rather than all CGI. Or like I said, the field with all the blood. Great looking. Like I said, realistic characters. Like I said, Tom Cruise is not a good, likable father. The son is your typical teenager. Thinks he knows everything. Thinks he knows better than the father. They have a rocky relationship. Like I said, the daughter is just a little girl who's scared of what's going on. Realistic portrayals, in my opinion. I think this was one of Steven Spielberg's best, even in the past 20 years. This was the same year he had Munich out in 2005 also. If you notice, Steven Spielberg is great when he has 2 movies out a year. 93, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List. 97, The Lost World, Amistad. 2002, Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can. 2005, War of the Worlds, Munich. I'm just saying. And like he does a great job there. His relationship with Tom Cruise had a little bit of a falling out at the time. This was when he was spouting his Scientology to everybody and jumping on Oprah's couch, declaring his love to Katie Holmes. You can't forget that, Tom. We'll never forget that. I also find it really funny, looking back on 2005, the daughter's name in the movie is Rachel. So he's always yelling, Rachel, 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 Rachel. And I think that's funny. Why, Matt? Why is it funny? Because that same summer, in 2005, we had Batman Begins. You know where I'm going with this. And Katie Holmes, yep, me and Katie Holmes, her character's name was Rachel. And Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise were a thing at the time, early in their relationship, but still an item. And it's so funny when I hear Tom Cruise saying, Rachel. Like, Katie Holmes? Just like in Batman again when Bruce Wayne, Batman yells, Rachel. Like, man, Rachel was a popular name in 2005. We also had Rachel McAdams in Wedding Crashers and Red Eye in the summer of 2005. So Rachel was a very popular name in the summer of 2005. Also the pacing. The first hour and 10 minutes of this movie is non-stop. It never lets up the full hour and 10 minutes into the runtime. And then it does slow down as soon as we meet Tim Robbins' character, which this wasn't the original movie. I kind of wish they changed it a little bit, but when we meet Tim Robbins' character, it slows the movie down a little bit. Not by much, right? And this is only like a 20 minute, sequence overall. But, it was definitely a slower pace to the film. Okay. When I originally saw this movie, I did not understand the connection of Tim Robbins and what he does in this movie. It went right over my head at the time. Because at the time that I saw this movie, I had not seen The Shawshank Redemption, which starred Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. Which, funny enough, Tim Robbins is in this movie, and the narrator, the guy narrating this whole movie, is Morgan Freeman. Think about that. Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman. War of the Worlds. Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, The Shawshank Redemption. Nobody realized it was a reunion. That went over my head. In the movie, when the aliens are starting to really kind of take over, and I can come into the house and are trying to, look around, and then they start feeding on people's blood. And that's when Tim Robbins really goes batshit crazy. He goes into a room and he starts digging. And he starts talking about, we're digging a tunnel. I'm digging a tunnel. We're going to take the tunnel all the way, I don't know where he said. But it didn't dawn on me at the time, because I hadn't seen Shawshank Redemption, that, oh my God, this is a direct reference to Shawshank Redemption. In that movie, he's building a tunnel, a hole in the wall, and a tunnel to, break out of the prison. Here, Tim Robbins is building a tunnel to escape the aliens. Not to mention, this was Tim Robbins just coming off of Mystic River, where he won Best Supporting Actor, where in that movie, he was a little batshit crazy. So they kind of mixed Shawshank Redemption and Mystic River character into one for the Tim Robbins character in War of the Worlds. It's a Steven Spielberg movie. What is the number one rule in a Steven Spielberg movie? You don't kill the kids. Teenager or not, or little girl, little boy. You don't kill the kids. In this movie, before the third act begins, Robbie runs into the military, goes and wants to fight with the military. Typical teenager, knows everything, stubborn, whatever. And he runs off with the military, and then, boom! Aliens blow up the entire place. Nothing is left alive. Ba-boom. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And what happens? We finally make it to Miranda Otto's house in Boston. She comes out. Dakota Fanning runs up to her mother, gives her a hug. Miranda Otto looks at Tom Cruise. You finally did something right with your life. Thank you. You're not a piece of shit husband or ex-husband. Thank you very much. And then, we see Robbie, the teenager, come out of the house, perfectly fine. So we have to have the happy ending. We have to have the happy ending. We can't have some morally, gray area where okay, you brought home our one child, but our other child still died in the process. You would still have that morally gray area. Nope. We gotta make it a happy ending. Oh, the teenager's alive too. We don't know how. We don't show how, but he's alive. Okay. And I mean, yes, you can look at this movie at the end, and maybe now as an adult, I look at it differently as, okay, the son proved to his father that he's old enough to make his own choices, and he did, and it ended up working, and the father now needs to learn to let his teenage boy live his life and become an adult. Okay, now you can look at that as an adult. But still, the fucker went into the thing and it completely blew up. In reality, he would not be alive. I don't care. He would be barbecue. He'd be barbecue. You want barbecue chicken with that? Let's put another shrimp on the barbie. Let's not. Anyway, other than that, I wish Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise would make another movie. Steven, it's been 20 years. Get over yourself. Also, I love the cinematography in this. The lighting. In both AI, Minority Report, and War of the Worlds, I consider those like the unofficial trilogy, because they all three have the similar cinematography, very like a futuristic look to them in the lighting. And I've always said, man, I wish. And Spielberg is making a new UFO movie that's coming out next summer. I really hope he uses that same cinematography he used in these other three sci-fi films of his. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Well, let me know, are you a fan of the Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise, War of the Worlds? Also, remember, this was also at the height of Dakota Fanning. She was just coming off of Man on Fire, Uptown Girl, Sweet Home Alabama, what else? A couple other movies. So this was when Dakota Fanning was one of the biggest child actresses at the time. Well, let me know in the comments below. Are you a fan of War of the Worlds? Do you want to see Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise work together again? Overall, let me know your thoughts. Matt the Mad here. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. I can't believe this movie is already 20 years old.